Good evening, everyone. All of those of you that have stuck around through my 7 minute delay here. I just finished resetting up my computer, and for some reason, Google Hangouts wasn't picking up my microphone. So yeah, that's why we're late here. Well, actually, I'm late because Dark Scholar wasn't late at all. He was right on time. So I apologize for that. I hope you're all doing well on this lovely Tuesday. Actually, it's exceptionally hot right now, but I hope it's lovely for you guys.
One thing I know for sure is that the weather's got to be a lot better than over here.
What's it like out there?
Scorching hot. Feel like I'm
Uh,
about to melt.
do I dare to ask where you live?
I live in South Texas. That is where I'm currently.
Oh, it's probably warmer than here. Not by much, but it's probably warmer than here. Hi, Mr. Breadman. Welcome. I wish there were food involved. Hi, Asian Persuasion. Just gonna give everybody a few minutes to get here.
Mm.
Sinister said, "Just jump on, and suddenly it has two dislikes. Haters drinking that haterade. LOL." You know, it's Sin who disliked it, right? Because he's the one who pointed it out, so it has to be him. But yeah, haters gonna hate. It happens. It has been a long time, Mr. Breadman. Glad to see you here, though. Totally your fault. Hi, beside the dying fire. Welcome. Yes, Sin, because you could definitely dislike a stream twice, even though you only have one account. Or do you? All right. Let me see. Did Google tweet this out like it's supposed to? Of course not.
I actually received the notification on my phone.
The tweet or the stream?
The tweet, I believe it was.
Oh, okay. I wonder why I can't see it on my end. That is so weird. Oh, it did. It did. Good job. Okay.
Mm-hmm. I was actually a little bit worried because I heard the notification on my phone go just. I was like, "Oh snap! I didn't turn it off."
Thank you, James. It's very nice of you. Oh, I'm glad you're done with school, Mr. Breadman. Hopefully successfully done. I'm sure you would tell me, Sin. I do trust you to tell me when you dislike my streams. Oh, look, a whole like. Somebody likes us. Thanks, guy or girl, person who likes us. Thank you, Empoleon. Hi, Margbot. You have a terrific Tuesday. Sending you positive vibes. Thanks for the positive vibes. I really appreciate it. So, oh, look, 8 people. Oh, I'm glad, Mr. Breadman, that you successfully got your BS in geology there. You know all about earthquakes and rocks and all the faults, the transverse faults, and all that stuff. Good job. Okay, so I think we're going to get started.
Sounds good to me.
I'm sure you have better things to do, Dark Scholar, like write awesome stories.
There's nowhere else I'd rather be than right here.
Aw, thank you. That means a lot. Okay, so let us get started. So why did you choose the name the Dark Scholar?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. The Dark Scholar was a name that had occurred to me back when I was still going to college down here in South Texas. I had always been drawn to what I described as fascinating things. I always loved learning new things about the world, particularly history. But ever since I was a young man, I had always found myself gravitating towards the darker subjects, things that were much more macabre in nature. And so the name just came out of that. And the
Oh,
rest is history.
awesome. So it had been a long time coming until you came here to us.
That could be said, yes. You could say that.
Okay. So how long have you been writing for?
Oh, it's been years now. I believe I first started seriously writing when I was 14. That's when I first decided that I wanted to become a writer. It
Do you
might actually
remember
surprise.
what your first story was back then?
Oh, my first story. It's a little bit embarrassing. The story was called Wastelander. It was a
Oh.
little post-apocalyptic story. It was It was so cheesy. It was so bad.
Hey, we all start somewhere, and it can't be that terrible if it's post-apocalyptic. I love post-apocalyptic stories, but you already knew that. Okay, so would you say that you have a muse? Is it somebody or something?
If I had to say that I had a specific muse, I would go so far as to say that my muse is life itself. I can get inspired by anything at any given time. One of my favorite stories that I'd written called Harbinger was just came to me as I was going to sleep after I had finished writing a story that you are familiar with called I Remember.
Yes.
It was just
I'm very
one after the other. Whereas some other stories had just popped into my head when I was doing something as menial as cooking, or I could be listening to a piece of music that really speaks to me, like I Remember, and the story will come out from there.
So now I have to ask what song or what genre inspired I Remember? Because that's one
I
of my favorite
Remember
ones.
was actually inspired by a piece done by a very famous person here in the creepypasta community, Muji.
Oh.
Disintegration.
Uh-huh.
You might remember that piece.
Yes.
I'm looking at the art on that video and I'm listening to the music, and from both of those things, on top of being inspired by a narrator who I greatly admire, Litterbot, I
Oh
Remember
yeah.
was born from those things.
I do miss Litterbot being around. I don't think he's uploaded in a long time.
He hasn't uploaded at the same frequency as he used to, but I'm still a great admirer of his work. And a little bit later on in the interview, I got some awesome news to share with you and the rest
Oh,
of your
very
viewers.
nice. Very nice. I wish I would have known that the story was inspired by that song because then I would have set it to my narration of it. That would have worked out nicely. But I could definitely see why that song might inspire that song, and the artwork that goes with it might inspire that story. But you continued on, and it's actually a trilogy, correct?
Right now, there are only two stories out in that particular saga, but I am working on a third piece and possibly a fourth one going
Oh,
onward.
gotcha.
But that's all linked to a little.
Later. Okay, I
Yeah.
understand. Do you have a process to prepare for when you're about to write? Or, I mean, you did say that it was kind of out of nowhere that you different things inspire you, but before you're actually going to write your stories down, do you have a process to prepare for it?
Well, when it comes straight down to it, if I feel like writing, like if I feel like I need to sit down and write, what I'll do is that I like to isolate myself inside my office. I like to have it dark as I can possibly be, so I shut out the light from the outside and I will listen to music or I will sit back and think. Sometimes I'll just lay my head back in the chair with my eyes shut and just wait for something to come to me. It's in moments of absolute peace that my greatest works actually come out.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. Yeah, sometimes in the solitude of, our rooms, that's when the muse visits you. I think we already touched a bit on the whole spontaneous writer and carefully thought out just now. Um, I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that or if you're happy with the answer.
Well, when it comes straight down to it, there are elements of both. Sometimes I will plan out specific plot points in a story, and that will eventually turn into an entire chapter or a separate story in and of itself. But there are other times where, as I mentioned before, where a story will just pop into my head at a moment's notice. When I first wrote, I remember I had no initial plans for any sequels at all. But a lot of people who I started showing it off to, in the hopes of seeing of whether or not I actually had any talent as a writer, would keep asking me, "So what happens next? So what happens next?" And my answer would always be the same. I was like, "Nothing. That's it. It's a one shot." And their answer was also always the same. "What? No, that can't be it. There's more."
There must be more.
Yes. And a year later, sure enough, it turns out they were proven right when I was just walking in the library, surrounded by all these different stories, thousands of books all around me. And somehow, while listening to another piece of music, I can't recall which piece it was at the moment, sadly. I the story for I remember sequel reaching for the stars came to me in a moment. And yeah, so that's where that came out to be.
Nice. Awesome. Okay. Do you have a favorite story you have written?
You know, I get asked that a lot actually, and it's always a difficult question to answer. But after thinking about it for some time, I believe that I can definitively answer. At this particular moment, my favorite story I've written is actually Reaching for the Stars. Of all the
Oh,
stories I had written, some could say that my one of my most recent stories, The Nexus, is my best written work. But would say that Reaching for the Stars is a much more personal piece. When I created that story, I was going through a very tough time in my life, and the pain that radiates from the main character and the emotions that a lot of people tell me that they feel well up with them when they read that story is a lot of what I was feeling at that particular time in my life. I had poured my heart and soul into that piece, and it was and like my ordeal that I was going through at that time, I could not finish that particular story until that particular part of my life came to an end. So
wow.
it's a very personal piece for me.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody who dabbles in writing sometimes, I always find that the pieces that I'm proudest of are usually the ones that I pour my heart and soul into and that have pieces of me in it. And maybe the reader or the listener doesn't realize that when they're listening or reading, but you know that. And like to you, it's kind of like a mirror. Like, okay, this is very specific to this time in my life, but maybe, maybe the person reading it will never know that.
There's a famous saying that's been passed down throughout the ages. Like, there's nothing to writing. All you have to do is sit in front of a typewriter and bleed. Granted, we don't use typewriters anymore, but I feel that the essence of the saying still applies to this day.
I agree. I certainly agree. Writing seems to be very personal, and I think the greatest works are personal works. It's not, okay, somebody paid me to write this. It's, you know, I
I,
was feeling this way and I wove it into a story, and then
mm,
people end up loving it all the more, it seems.
I 100% agree with you right there, Mark. But
Do you have a favorite theme that you like writing about?
that is also a toughie. A particular theme. I would just say that I just love stories of a more darker nature, obviously given my name. But I have a reason for it. The reason why my stories are so dark, because I get that question asked a lot, like, why do you write such dark things? Why is it always so dramatic or violent or scary? And the reason is because I believe that a person's true nature comes out when they are backed into a corner. It is in those moments that you see who somebody truly is, whether they're courageous or cowardly, selfless or selfish. And when you make these characters go through something like that and make them appear so human, so lifelike, that you see yourself in them, that the story will speak to you in a way that most others don't. That's my personal belief.
Yeah, that is something that you definitely have a gift for with your characters is giving them those normal human flaws. They're not one dimensional. Um, and that's what makes your stories come to life, in my opinion, in the ones that I've had, I've read and that you've shared with me. I think you make them very lifelike. They're not, oh, all drama or anything like that. So that's definitely something I appreciate personally in your writing.
I'm glad to hear it.
How did your stories end up on here?
Um, well, it's a little bit embarrassing, but to be perfectly honest, my first few stories for anybody who really wants to go out looking for them were written in comment sections of a few YouTube videos.
Ooh, okay.
Uh, like the earliest works were written there, and people started upvoting those comments, and then I was like, oh, I guess people like what I written, and this is only like took me 5 minutes. Let's see what would happen if I really applied myself to this, because before that, I wrote mostly as a hobby, like back in high school. I
Uh-huh.
didn't really get serious about it until college when I saw that people actually liked my writing.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Do we get to know which YouTubers those were? Do you remember?
Uh,
You
well,
don't
this
have to
is
tell us if you don't
before
want
I
to.
created my Dark Scholar persona and channel and
Oh,
my whole profile.
okay.
It's not so much that I'm embarrassed about the stories themselves. It's more along the lines of,
Privacy.
yes, I like
I
to keep my professional and my personal life separate.
Oh no, I think most of us understand that here. So I wanted to ask you, and this is not one of the questions, but I hadn't realized that you have a channel. I thought you just had the Patreon and you uploaded onto there, but you have your very own channel now, don't you?
I do. Unfortunately, though, due to technical hiccups I had in the past few months, I wasn't able to upload it with the same frequency that I was initially starting with. But right now, I'm currently working on a major project and should be uploading videos again, hopefully by December, because the project is very large and requires a whole lot of work. Mhm.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we've all been in those shoes. So, okay, because I want to make sure to link it in the description below. Is it just called the Dark Scholar YouTube?
I believe it is. What is it? Not quite sure, really. One moment. Do, do, do. It's just Dark Scholar. That's my channel's name.
Okay. Let me go ahead because I thought you were just uploading onto Patreon, which, by the way, guys, he does have a Patreon. I have linked it below. He writes
Oh,
amazing stories, in my opinion. So, if you guys want to go ahead and check that out, there are a few perks. In the meantime, I am going to link his channel below so that you guys can check it out and subscribe. I already have the Reddit on there. So hold on, give me a second because this does not want to cooperate in allowing me to add his channel because YouTube, you know.
it's all right. To those watching, those special privileges that Margbot was speaking about is that if you for just $1 a month you receive exclusive and/or early access to stories I have written, plus a few narrations by yours truly that other people will not get the chance to hear.
Be special, guys. Join him in his dark scholarly ways. Okay. Oh, I love that I was already demonetized. I'm not sure why, but okay.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another issue I have. I love YouTube as a platform. I don't really care for what they're doing with the censorship. There seems to be this stigma against the horror community at the moment. So, at the moment, the only reason I'm you really using YouTube right now is mostly as a platform to help my name grow so that I can share my stories with more people. That's the dream. It's not ever been about money or popularity. It's been about me sharing stories with people so that they can touch them in the same way that they touched me.
yeah, I feel like that's what it probably should be to most content creators is a platform to get their work out, not like their main source of income because YouTube is so volatile that you just never know when they're gonna pull the plug on you, you know?
Absolutely. Also, I do believe that YouTube will one day die, and when it does, it's just going to happen in a flash. No one's going to see it coming.
Yeah, I guess time will tell, huh?
Hmm.
Do you know who the first narrator was to read one of your stories on YouTube?
Ah, yes. My first narrator. This was back when I was still living with my mother. My first narrator was 2 years ago. Her name was Your Zombie Girlfriend. I cannot rightly recall how we first came into contact with each other all those years ago, but she was a quick fan of my work and she narrated it and sent me a text over the phone going like, "Hey, look at this." And I was like, "Oh my god." This is how I my first story got on YouTube. And at that time, that was a very big deal for me. I never even thought that I would ever have the chance to see my work be narrated by anybody.
How
It's
long ago was that? Do you remember?
a little over 2 years ago. We'll be going on three.
Is she still around? Because I haven't seen that name before.
She has a little over 300 subscribers. We lost contact with each other
Oh,
for
okay.
some
I
time,
see.
but I'm
Gotcha.
not sure whether or not she's still uploading.
Okay. And then it just kind of blew up from there, and pretty much channels of all sizes have read your work.
Yes.
Um, Tell us about your book, the long-awaited question.
Ah, yes, my book. Well, I can tell you that the title is The Nexus Chronicles, Volume 1. This is just the first in a long series of books that I have planned. It is an anthology series bringing together stories that have already been narrated here on YouTube and those that have not yet been seen by anybody just yet. And I am hoping, because as we are talking right now, as we're doing the interview, I am actually working on getting this book published on the Amazon store. So I am hoping to have this book published by this weekend. But
Wow.
something even more exciting is that the project I was working on earlier, the thing I was being so mysterious about, is actually an animated adaptation of the book itself.
Wow.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Do we
I
get to know who's animating it?
Strawberry Nightmare.
Oh, she's amazing. That's
Uh,
awesome.
yes. I have gathered a team of very talented individuals from all over the world and all over the horror community and beyond. For instance, Litterbot himself will be making a return, reprising his role as the AI in that adaptation.
Very nice.
Absolutely. And
Wow. So
I'm
you've
hoping
some
to have the
assembled the
first
Avengers.
episode of the new series up by December. And the first two episodes will be free. They'll be uploaded here on YouTube. Unfortunately, that will be all my wallet can support at first. So I'm hoping that the first two episodes will boost sales for my book and gain popularity in and of itself so that maybe fans could support me and we can keep the series going.
Yeah, because I mean, if you do that on Patreon, I don't know if that's something that you've looked into. I know Patreon allows you to pay per episode or per creation. Maybe people are, they'll check out the first few episodes and then they'll go and support the Patreon, and thus they'll have access to the other ones.
Yes.
Okay. All right, then that's really exciting. That's definitely something that's not done very often in the community. We do have some animations done, but for you to do it with all the stories in the book, that would be amazing.
Hmm. It is something that I have wanted to do for quite some time. And eventually you come to a point where you have to decide whether or not you're going to wait for someone to do something for you or if you're going to go out there and do it yourself. And I
Yeah.
decided I was going to go out and do it myself. I was hoping, I've actually had the book done for quite some time now. The only reason I hadn't published it by now was because I was waiting for the cover art. And I'm really excited to show off the cover art eventually, just as soon as
Do
I
we
get that
know
book published.
do we know who did the cover art?
The cover art was done by an artist called Yeah Man Productions.
Yeah,
And
yeah. Yeah, he did mine as well. So,
oh
well,
yeah,
one of the renditions of the one I currently have up was actually done by Mr. Extremes. But if you look on the bottom right-hand corner, that was the previous rendition of Margbot, and he did that one. So they're both incredibly talented. But yeah, I'm glad that he's the one doing it because he does amazing work.
absolutely. And what was insane was that he did the cover art that I had commissioned from him in only 3 days. I was very surprised to see it done because the art that I commissioned for him was no simple piece. It wasn't just going to be like the Dark Scholar on the cover. It was going to be the Dark Scholar, and inside of his body are several different scenes from the different stories from inside my book. And he
Ooh,
somehow made them all go inside his body and meld together seamlessly in a beautiful pattern.
very nice. I'm excited to see that. It must look pretty amazing. You just have everybody involved in this, it sounds like.
Yeah, well, fortune favors the bold, and I figure I must be bold.
It
And
may
I'm
as
getting
well, right? So, just in general, what are your plans for the next year with everything you're doing?
well, I'm going to be continuing working on the animation. for the first season of the Nexus Chronicles adaptation, and I am going to keep on working on the second volume of the Nexus Chronicles. It's going to be bigger, better, and badder. That is something to look forward to.
Gotcha. Okay. So, any other focus on your actual channel as far as videos you'll be uploading? Because I know you told us about the first two episodes of the book being animated, but anything else we should look out for?
Well, I am hoping that I should be able to get over my technical difficulties through book sales and whatever support I get from my Patreon fans, so that I will be able to start uploading lore videos for this game that I'm very fond of called Soul Sacrifice. You will see that my first few videos on my channel are actually of that uh, series of lore videos on that particular game. It's a
Gotcha.
game I'm very fond of, and I will also be uploading other creepypasta narrations as well.
Okay. All right. So, I asked the folks here to see if they had any questions, and Robin had said, "What do you think it says about those of us that write mostly horror or dark tales?"
Well, I cannot speak for everybody else. Some people, I imagine, would do it simply because the genre entertains them, whereas for others, such as myself, it could be an outlet for some of our more darker aspects of our personality. A way to air it out, as well as provide a medium for other people to enjoy a good story that comes from the heart.
Gotcha. A cathartic experience, basically. Okay. That's a good answer. Dingleberry is asking, and I'm going to ask one by one so I don't just throw everybody in there. Does he like Skin Locust? Do you like Skin Locust? It's another narrator.
Skin Locust.
Yes. Have you heard
I
of him?
I do not believe I am familiar. Sorry to say.
How about Goodnight Goosebumps?
I have heard the name. I think I might have seen some videos. I sadly, due to the work I've been doing all this time, I am not really up to date with most things.
Gotcha. Fear Deer. I'm actually not familiar with that one. And let's see, Nightmare Files, Dead Bug, Creeks and Peaks, and Mr. Ramsey. Any of
I
those
did
sound familiar?
familiar with Nightmare Files, but I cannot say the same for the rest, sadly.
Oh, ding, ding, ding. Nightmare Files is a winner. Okay, gotcha. Okay, I think those are all the questions I have. Anything that you want these folks to know about your channel and your creations, your writing?
Yes, this is only the beginning. This is the very start of a multiverse that I am creating through the Nexus Chronicles. This tale has an infinite amount of possibilities that I can create at any given moment. One thing that you'll notice throughout reading the stories is that in some way or another, they are all connected. They're all part of the same world. These stories just take place across time and space, stories that take place from the beginning all the way to the very end and everywhere else in between, which means that for every story that is told, there are a million others that could branch off of it. Case in point, when I wrote I Remember, I believed it to just be a one off. Then came Reaching for the Stars, which it branched off from that one and became the story about the woman who had actually ended up building the AI's body. The sequel will branch off from another character that is only briefly mentioned, not even named in that story. And the inspiration for that particular style of writing for my book came to me when my grandmother had just gone out of a surgery. She was laying on her bed, and I saw her doctor come in. They talked briefly, and he walked out. I remember my grandmother talking to me about that doctor, and I realized something. That man has a story. Each of us has a story. And even though our story may come to an end one day, that doesn't mean that the greater tale of life has come to an end. We're all just characters walking on and off the stage of life. And I would like my book series to reflect that. So look forward to
Awesome.
that.
Yeah, that's definitely lots of stuff to look forward to. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's it. I think we're gonna wrap it up. As you guys know, I'm testing out when the best day or rather night to do these interviews on is so. I mean, I'm not noticing much of a change versus Friday night because I feel like most people are out Friday night. But thank you so much, the Dark Scholar, for stopping by and allowing me to interview and sharing, all of your creativity with us.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course, anytime. And I love hearing from you and you sharing your stories with me because I'm always looking for more to read. Kind of slowed down there for a while for various reasons, but yeah, I actually have already uploaded a video um, that should be made public tomorrow. So keep an eye out for that, guys. Thank you so much, Empoleon. He said, "Congratulations again, Margbot, for 2,500 subscribers. You deserve infinite happiness and success." Thank you, Empoleon. I really appreciate it.
Here's to
Hi,
the
Autumn.
500.
Sorry, go ahead.
Here's to the next 2,500.
Yeah, here's to like hitting 100K, just saying. Anyway, have a lovely evening, guys. And I will catch you on Friday because I actually have an interview on Friday as well with Dark Owl, which had to be rescheduled for this week. But yeah, hopefully I get to see you guys on Friday, same time. All right, then, Markbot out.